Okay, happy Friday, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not going to be there today. I'm already thanking you for behaving for the sub and also to make sure I have all my calculators back. Okay, we're dealing with piecewise functions, and I have some terms that we need to go over. I kind of wrote it out. Piecewise function is something you probably haven't seen before, but the definitions, functions made up of pieces of other functions. So, at some point we're actually going to be erasing parts of lines because we only need part of it. We're only going to keep pieces of lines. But first we're going to practice evaluating functions. Again, anytime you need to pause, go right ahead so you can write any of this down. So again, going on to evaluating, but first we kind of need to understand what we are working with, what the problem is asking for. So the part in black is what the problem's going to look like. And so it's going to have this f of x, this weird, nice little fancy bracket type of thing, and then a few equations. So these here, those are equations. And I am horrible at writing with a stylus. These are equations. And then we have inequalities after it, and that's the part we want to keep, okay? So this first one is where we want to keep the numbers smaller than 1. And I mean the x values. And then the greater than or equal to 1, these are the numbers 1 and bigger. And then we have this f of negative 2, f of 1, all of that type of stuff. And that's saying that, oops, let me erase that because that's going to bug some of us. That f of x, and x is going to be negative 2. So anytime you have that f and then you have a number, that means x is negative 2. And we're going to plug that into the equation. And then the next one, we're going to plug f of 1 in, and the next one we'll plug f of 6. Now I labeled which equation we're plugging it into because negative 2 is smaller than 1. That's why we're plugging it into the first equation. 1 is equal to 1. And 6 is bigger than 1, so that's why I have second equation for that one. So moving it down, here's that example that we just talked about. Oops, sorry about that. So again, telling which equations we're plugging it in for. This was, I don't know why it's doing that. This was the first one. This was the second equation, and this is the second. So the first one, instead of x, we plug in negative 2. So that's going to give me negative 4 plus 1, which you could just type all of that in the calculator. And how we would write this is f of negative 2 equals negative 3. And that would be our answer. So then the next one, we're going to plug 1 into the second equation. So negative 2 with a 1 in plus 3, which again, I would just type all of that in the calculator like so. And so f of 1 equals 1. And then the last one, again, we're plugging it into the second equation, but this time we're going to plug the number 6. So it goes negative 2 with the 6 plus 3. Plug all of that into our calculator, and so that would give me negative, oops, I write it the proper way. So f of 6 equals negative 9. So those were the answers for that one. So let's try another one of these. bigger so you can see all of it. So -4, again, we have these inequalities. So the top one is telling me that it's equal to -2 or smaller, and the second inequality is bigger than -2. So -4 is going to be plugged into the first equation. -2 is also going to be plugged into the first equation because that line underneath the inequality. And then f of 3 will be in the second one. And we'll talk about that one. It's kind of a little unique. So I have my f of -4, so it's -4 plus 5. So my f of f of -4, the answer for that is 1. And then I'm going to try the next one. So again, plugging it into that top, or the first equation. So it's -2 plus 5. So f of -2 is equal to 3. Plugging it into that equation right there. That's where I'm getting that from. The last one's a little weird. I'll box that in for us. Because it just has f of x equals -4. And there's no x on this side. So anytime you have that, then that answer for f of 3 is just -4. It's whatever that number is. So that's whenever I don't have a letter there to plug in, a letter x. Okay, so now I have 3 of them. So we got to make sure that we double check our inequalities. So the first one, it wants the numbers smaller than 1. And the only one out of all of these 3 that I have here that's small, or excuse me, wants the number smaller than -3. So -4 is smaller than -3. Then 4, that's in between those. That's what it means whenever it has that -3 less than x less than or equal to 6. That means in between. So this is going to be plugged into the second equation. And then f of 8 is bigger than 6. So we'll plug that one into the third equation. So the first one, we just have that constant again. So for f of -4, it's just going to be 5. It's just going to be whatever that number is. So the next one, we're plugging it into the second equation. So we're going to plug it right there. So it goes 1/2 times 4 minus 6. So 1/2 times 4 is 2 minus 6, so that equals -4. And then the last one, we're going to plug in that 8 into the last inequality. We're going to plug it in right there. So again, plug that all into the calculator one line, or you could do -16 plus 10. So f of 8 is equal to -6. So that's whenever I'm evaluating the piecewise. The next part, you might want to write in pencil because we're going to be graphing lines and then we are going to be erasing part of it. Kind of have the steps here so you can kind of look through it where we're going to graph it, you know, making sure we graph it properly. And then again, like I said, we're erasing part of it. So you might want to use a pencil, borrow a neighbor's, whatever you can do to help with that. We've dealt with these circles before. So remember, if I have an open circle, which is a circle not colored in, that means then I have less than or greater, or excuse me, less than or greater. If I have a closed circle where it's colored in, yours will be prettier than mine, then that line's going to be underneath it, greater than, equal to, or less than equal to. So we're going to need to know that. Then we're going to have f of x. F of x is the same thing as y equals. So when we're graphing this, it's like we're putting it in a slope-intercept form or graphing a side-to-side line. Oops, do that. Move to the next part. Okay, so we did that part. Now I'm going to move over to what part of the line we keep. So we'll be given an equation that we graph, and then it will have that inequality after it. So I'm going to split this up. If I have x is less than or x is less than equal to, I want to keep the left part because it kind of points, that inequality is pointing to the left. If I have x is greater than or x is greater than equal to, then I'm going to keep the right part. Because again, it's kind of pointing to the right. And then I'm going to have this weird inequality with, you know, or the x is in the middle, all of that stuff. What that's telling us is we want the part of the line that's in between. If you see this double inequality type, that means I want to keep the part in between it. So we're going to go to the other side of the notes and a few examples. All right, so remember I told you that f of x is the same thing as y. So this is like I'm graphing y equals 3. So y equals 3 is a side-to-side line. So I'm going to go to 3, and I'm going to draw, hopefully, a nice side-to-side line. Then it has this x is less than 2. So this is where my x value is 2. Okay? And I'm going to go up to where that intersects with my line. And with it being less than, I want an open circle. And I want to keep the left part of the line. So I'm going to erase the other part. I don't want that right part. And I know that I have kind of a line through the circle, but I understand that it is open. Okay, so then going to the next example. Remember, this is telling me that I want y equals -2. So we're going to go to -2, draw a line. And this is telling me that I want in between. So at -4, I'm going to have a closed circle. And at 5, I'm going to have an open circle. And in between are in between those circles. So I want to erase the outside of it. Sorry, I got part of my circle there. It might be hard to cover it up. So we will continue graphing piecewise functions when I get back. And if you have any questions, email me. If not, I will see you on Monday. Have a great day and a great weekend. Thanks, guys.